Welcome to City Cinematheque, where the art and pleasure of the movies are the subject of serious discussion. I'm your host, Jerry Carlson, and I teach film studies at the City College of the City University of New York. Today, it's our pleasure to present the 2004 drama and comedy, The Syrian Bride, directed by Eran Riklis. Now, in a number of ways, this is a traditional film that's about a wedding. But in a number of other ways, it's not traditional because the wedding happens to be set among the Druze community who live in the Golan Heights overlooking Syria from Israeli-controlled territory. So you can imagine this is a very, very rich and unusual subject matter. Talking about the film after today's screening will be the noted expert on Israeli, Yiddish, and Jewish cinema, Eric Goldman. Now, join a truly remarkable set of characters for The Syrian Bride. Welcome back to City Cinematheque. I hope you've enjoyed this opportunity to see, I think, an unusually rich and humanist Israeli film that has a very serious side but has a strongly comic and indeed in certain moments strongly satiric side to it as well. It's a rich film. We've got 30 minutes to talk about it, and it's a pleasure to have with us today Eric Goldman. Eric is known to many people as someone who's written for years and rather broadly on Jewish, Yiddish, and Israeli cinema. His most recent book, published by University of Texas Press in 2013, is The American Jewish Story Through Cinema. His next book is actually, he's in the midst of research for, will actually be on Israeli cinema and society. Others may know Eric from his activities as a film distributor because he is the president of Ergo Media, which distributes, not surprisingly, films of Jewish, Yiddish, and Israeli heritage. Eric also has taught for any number of years and is currently an adjunct associate professor at Yeshiva University. Welcome to City Cinematheque.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Great. So let's start out with perhaps the most important contextual question, and it's really two questions into one. Who are the Druze? Why the Druze as the center of a film? And then after that, the Druze are in a number of places, but this film is set among the Druze on the Golan Heights. And this is, you know, shooting in the Golan Heights is not a casual decision, nor choosing the Druze community as the narrative center of the film. So let's start with the Druze.
The Druze are actually, for many, a curiosity. My first trip to Israel, we were taken to Dalyat El Carmel, which was a Druze village, to experience the Druze. Who are they? They are a sect that split off from Islam in the 11th century and practiced something, sort of a secret sect kind of thing. They call it taqiyya. And it's interesting because as part of that, they're not supposed to tell you anything about their religion. And they also must be, according to their religion, loyal citizens of the state in which they're.
Okay.
So there they are. It's exotic. They're warm. They're loyal Israelis. And that's the Druze of Israel. It's interesting that in the 1955 film, Hill 24 Doesn't Answer, when Miriam, one of the heroines of the film, one of the key players, has to escape Jerusalem, where does she go? She goes to the Druze village because it protects her. Now here we have a Druze village that is in the Golan Heights.
Right.
Now, the Golan Heights was part of Syria until 1967. After the Six-Day War, it was annexed by Israel. And curiously, what happened was that Druze families literally were separated from each other because of the new 67 borders.
Right, and so now that brings up. We'll get into the film a little bit already. So, what about the patriarch figure in the family? Because he's an Israeli Druze, but he has been in jail because of his pro-Syrian sympathy. So how do we sort that out?
Well, the reality is he's not an Israeli
Okay.
Druze. He's a Syrian Druze. And according to his sect, he must be loyal to Syria. These are Druze who lived in Syria, and when it's annexed by Israel, they retain their loyalty to Syria. So it doesn't quite make sense. Why are they protesting? And in fact, many Druze who were part of Syria and joined Israel actually found Israel to be a better place to live in. And that's why you have this issue with the boy who's considered to be a collaborator. But the reality is that he's a loyal Druze, a loyal Syrian, and he retains that, and that gets to be a problem for the Israeli administration.
Well, and let's think about this in terms of the family, because in terms of one of the daughters is going to now cross over into Syria, and her life will be led there, and it's very well explained what the legal implications of that are in the film, and certainly the last third of the film is the negotiation over that. Yet another one of the plot points in the film is pointing in exactly the opposite direction, that the other sister is fighting with her husband over the fact that there are no more excuses for her not to get her university degree and to become a fully integrated working woman in the modern modern Israel. And by the way, the status of women in Syria itself is very interestingly portrayed in the film, because the bridegroom, we see him in the context of television production in Syria, in which you have these powerful women who are controlling things there. So it's not set up as, one place being the primitive and one place being the modern, but it's like, okay, one sister goes into the Syrian modernity of Damascus and what her class will do there, and the other one is going off and wishes to get her university degree in Haifa, in which the language of instruction will be Hebrew.
There's a dichotomy here. There are two powerful factions at work. One is the Druze faction, and the Druze have their own religious courts and their own system of administration. So in a certain sense, what is their responsibility to that Druze world in which they are part? And the other is that now they're living in Israel. And what is their responsibility, and what is the impact of Israeli society where women are given the opportunity to pursue careers, to go to social work school? And here she is. She's been accepted.
Right.
So, which way do you go? And the bride is caught in the middle.
Absolutely.
You see her mother, who is a product of that world, and you see the sister who wants to be independent. She's been held back, clearly. She's had to raise her children. Now the children are grown up. She wants to go off, and she wants to find a life for herself, and she's terribly disillusioned with her life. She wants more as a woman and as a person.
Oh, absolutely. And we see again within the same family, we see how should I put it? Everyone has multiple loyalties, but how they proportion those loyalties or how they prioritize those loyalties. So there's the very moving I think scene in which the husband, who's very unsympathetic in all kinds of ways, but he talks honestly about his concept of manhood. Now we may not agree with him about, that his manhood should be defined in these ways, but he is very candid about what this will do to him, because his loyalty is to the Druze and to this particular concept. He cannot imagine this yet. Once again, the film is so rich in these ways. He's not dressed as the elders are, his dress code is that, like his father-in-law, that you dress like a modern businessman, and he is in perfect kind of managerial business casual throughout the, entire film, that in that sense fits with the way his wife is dressing. They look like, the modern business casual couple, and yet she's wearing jeans.
The moment at the end, I think, tells it all. There he is. he's a sissy in a certain sense. You know, he's not had enough water, he faints, and there he is sitting on the ground. She comes up to him, and they've not been able to have a decent conversation. And he's like crying and moaning, and what are they going to think of me? They're going to think that I'm not a man. And it's a great moment because, you know, yes, he's this powerful business guy, and he's you know, at the catering hall, he's sitting there and he's giving orders.
Another sheep.
He's slaughtering another sheep. He's running things, but in reality, he has no relationship with his daughters, and his relationship with his wife is really horrendous.
Absolutely the case. Now let's get a little bit further into the family history, as it were, because in one sense, what we've dealt with is there's the Druze, and then there's the Syrian loyalty, and then the Israeli loyalty. But one of the interesting things about this is that the particular condition of the Druze, as well as the conditions of Israel itself, means that the family isn't just contained in Israel or in Syria, though there are factions of the family on both sides of this. We have two of the brothers defined as being professionals in exile, one in Moscow and the other in Italy, and they're absolutely contrasting models of brothers, although they get along well. I mean, with their reunion when one zooms by in his car and then comes back to pick up his brother, is you're kind of saying, how do these guys related? You don't know this at the moment, and then all of a sudden, oh, you're my brother, and they're embracing. Yet their trajectories are very, very different.
The whole issue of home and exile are key issues in Israeli cinema.
Okay.
You know, what is home? And what is home for a Palestinian? And what is home for an Israeli? And what is home for a Druze? And these, as you said, these two boys are in exile. And then you have the other brother on the other side of the border in Syria. We don't even know anything about him except that there he is with the megaphone across the border.
Absolutely.
What is home? And in fact, the interesting piece of it is every time she opens up her passport and it says nationality, it says undefined.
Absolutely the case.
So that's what director Riklis is playing with here. He's playing with the notion of home, of exile, of family, of unity, and also of disunity.
Right. Now let's stop with that just for a second and talk about that in relationship to what may be, the different, periods or epochs, if you prefer, of Israeli cinema. Because I think, Eric, this is something you've studied and written about for a great deal of your professional life. Let's talk about kind of the foundational moment of Israeli cinema and what that project is, because it's really it's a nation-building project. So how would you do your compare and contrast of that epoch with a film like this, with this concept of national identity or home?
Well, the early films, in many respects, were romantic. There was a sense that somehow Israeli Jews and Arabs could be friends. It's almost like, the classic cowboy movie. The cowboys and the Indians can smoke peace pipe. As a matter of fact, in one of the early films, They Were 10, they literally smoke a peace pipe. The Jew goes into the Arab village, and they're sitting there with the hookah, and all is good, and it's going to be a happy ending. But unfortunately, that's not the reality of Israeli life. So Israel went through a whole variety of periods, itself and its growth and evolution, and cinema too. Right. At one point, Israeli filmmakers looked outside and didn't want any part of any of the politics. So they made films that were impacted by the new waves coming out of Czechoslovakia and France. And then this whole issue of what do we do about the situation? So at a certain point in the 80s and 90s, lots of films about Jews and Arabs living side by side and the child of one falling in love with the daughter of the other. And again, maybe that's the way of bridging it. So here you have, post-Oslo, post the assassination of Rabin, this sense of inability to bring the two sides together. You have somebody as talented as Eran Riklis coming along, and he struggled with this theme really as a major part of his work. How do we bring these two sides together, and what's going on? What's keeping them apart? Is it bureaucracy that we see in this film? Is it just the inability to talk with each other? What is going on, and how do we somehow bridge this gap? So you look at the early period, it was romantic and, yeah, everybody's going to be happy. And then this sort of sense of disillusion post-Rabin, how can we make everybody happy?
Right. Right. And is there, in that very traditional nation-state sense, is there this kind of the essential Israeli? You know, is there an essence that is this, or is this something that's, you know, always going to be defined by multiple, you know, allegiances, and as they say, always in process, rather than that romantic notion that at the end there's the product. The product may be peace, but the product can also be a stable and known identity that came from a stable and known past, and that projects a stable and known future. And that's not the world we're in. In this film, in Riklis's other films, nor, by the way, I would take it, since we're showing multiple films in this series, however different they may be, the films of contemporary Israel, that is one of the things, as you've already pointed out, that they have in common, is this questioning, you know, about this. They may slice and dice, treat it from different angles, but that whole notion, that romantic notion, is gone.
Is gone. And who are the two Israelis in the film? Who are the Israelis in the film? The policeman and the bureaucrat.
Absolutely.
And look at both of them. I mean, look at the policeman. He's sitting there and he's, you know, he wants to be her friend. Come, we'll have coffee. I didn't come here for coffee.
Right.
Some of my best friends are Druze.
That's a great line.
Great. It's just terrific. But, you know, in the end, he's stuck by the sense of needing to protect and security. How aware are we as Americans today of the issue of security and limitations?
Right.
So you have that side of him. And there's a good side, but there's also the sense that he is the protector of the people. And then the bureaucrat, you know, who's there worried about his son, worried about whether he's going to be bringing back apples, and that cute moment when he finally gets the apples and they drop out. And then the sensitivity you see when he says, you know, I don't want anyone to see this, but I'm going to do something nice. And he takes the white out on the passport. But don't identify me, because I'll lose my job.
Right. Absolutely the case. So let's, you know, let's get to that last third of the film, because what we have, you know, this is a very classically structured film in a lot of ways. We have, you know, a kind of broad exposition of everybody's arriving. Then after that, we have a kind of section in which everybody's arrived and everybody's mixing, or, because there are tensions, not mixing, right, conspicuously. And then, more or less, for the last third of the film, we move to the border itself. And it's a very, very interesting part of the film. What do you think about the film's treatment of bureaucracy? Because obviously this is when the film gets most satiric, and there's something that's really up front, and by the way, I think universal, in the sense that we can put it in the very specific context of the you know, Syrian this. But, you know, most of us who live in modern societies have had contact with bureaucracy, and so it speaks to that. So what do you make of this and the cinematic treatment of it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you have those gates, you know, they open up. UN trucks go back and forth, but they close and they block. And that moment when she's peering through one gate and her bridegroom is on the other side peering through another gate. And what about that no man's land? How do we cross that?
Yeah.
And who's the one doing the crossing? The UN mediator. So in effect, you have the mediator, whether it's George Mitchell or this UN mediator. How do we open those gates? And in between, there are the roadblocks, those cement roadblocks.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and she tries. She tries. And it's not the Syrians who are at fault. It's not the Israelis who are at fault. Each of them try and figure out a solution, but it's the messenger who's at fault.
And it's very interesting, the treatment of the messenger in it, because one can imagine an earlier cinema in which one of our nobler kinds of characters, the kind of Gregory Peck, role of the diplomat, this. And this is, a 30-year-old French woman of high, competence, but who's saying things like, "I've done as much as I can," and this is the person in charge. And I don't mean that to demean her professionalism or competence or whatever, but once again, it's a de-romanticized version of this. A young blonde woman with a clipboard running back and forth, as opposed to once again perhaps the expectation of the kind of male ex-military diplomat, etc. The film will have nothing of that. And then you even get, instead of putting this in the place of international, politics, because it's all being controlled by that, but we're at the level of, you're doing this to my family because you're disappointed in our love affair. And you're saying, whoa.
And what's the problem? It's the gap.
Yeah.
Interesting that he chooses a gap. What is that gap that separates them and that separates the two parties? I think, Riklis is playing to both a domestic and international audience.
Yeah, I think that.
And what you have is the UN has a very peculiar history in Israel. UN trucks would go through Israel and people would often make fun of it. It was the UN that, Egypt in 1967 said to the UN, leave Sinai. Right. And they picked up and left. It was that simple. So what is the role of the UN here? Is there any role for the UN? And again, this 30-year-old French woman, what can she do? So there's that, and they're not the right messenger because, she's more concerned with catching her flight or doing this or the romance that you speak about. It's part of the frustration that Riklis is building on. How do you open those gates, bring these parties together? And will she, in the end, be the one to do it?
Absolutely.
She's going to meet her bridegroom, but what does that really symbolize? Is it more than just a woman meeting a man who she's barely had any contact with, really hasn't?
Absolutely.
Picture, and maybe there's hope, or maybe there's no hope.
Very much left open. Very much left open at the end of the film. Very interesting, also, the parallel treatment of the Israeli and Syrian bureaucracies. I mean, I must say, in a delightful way, this is a balanced satiric treatment. Because there's a wonderful when the Syrian officer comes up. But the bridegroom is a really famous guy. Maybe he could get to the prime minister.
And he does. And he does. I think it's important also to understand that this is a Druze situation. These are not Palestinians. These are Druze. And the Druze are seen by most Israelis in very, very positive way.
Absolutely.
Druze have been a major part of the Israeli army. They initially had the opportunity when Israel was founded to volunteer, and now they are drafted like other Israelis. So here they are, and yet, what is their nationality? What is their connection? What is their family? What is the secretive world in which they live in? And how do you pull this all together?
Right. This is. So what do you make of the ending of the film itself? That wonderful, because it's wonderful cinematically. We see the gate open, but we don't see her. We don't see the moment she passes. We see it afterward. Why this ending, Eric?
Okay, so who is holding back the union of this bride and groom? Is it the bureaucracies? Is it the family? Is it the sense that when they're all around her, she's afraid to take that step? Only when they walk away from her does she take that moment to sneak across. And then, once that's happening, what does that allow her sister to do as she walks off into the sunset, so to speak?
Yeah,
is she going to go to school? Is she going to leave her husband? No, there's no chance she'll leave her husband, but hopefully she'll go to school. I think it's a moment of hope. It's a moment of opportunity. It's a moment where, in particular for a woman, she's the one crossing the border. Mm-hmm. It's not It's not the man. He's an established, well-respected actor. You know, even the guards are watching him on TV.
It's hilarious.
Great moment. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that Riklis does so well. He brings in the comedy along with the tragedy, but she takes that step. It's the woman who maybe is the hope to bring the two sides together.
Okay. And you've given me the perfect kind of exit moment because we've actually run out of our time. If you'd like to know more about this particular series on City Cinematheque or the other series we offer on this program, as well as the station, please visit our website. Go to www.cuny.tv. You'll find information about City Cinematheque, other programming, and in addition, you'll find ways to communicate with us by, no surprise, email. So please visit www.cuny.tv. Eric, thank you for an exciting and rich 30 minutes of discussion. There's more to be said, and I hope that that conversation will take place among our viewers, and I hope we've given them that stimulation to do so. I look forward to reading your next book, and I look forward to having you back on City Cinematheque sometime.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great pleasure. And thank you for joining us today to watch The Syrian Bride. But please join us in coming weeks as we stroll through the archives of film history here on City Cinematheque. But for now, it's goodbye.